My former mother-in-law spotted me in a hospital hallway exactly 1 year after my divorce. The same woman who had spent years telling her son I wasn't good enough. She looked me up and down, smiled, and said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Leaving you was the best decision my son ever made. Now he has a beautiful wife, a baby boy, and the life he deserves." I simply smiled. Then I asked one question. "Is that what you believe?" 5 minutes later, a man walked into the room. The moment she saw him, her confidence vanished. And everything changed. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 34 years old, and exactly 1 year ago, my husband signed divorce papers while his mother sat beside him smiling. At the time, I thought losing my marriage was the worst thing that could happen to me. I was wrong. The worst part wasn't the divorce. It was discovering how easily some people can rewrite your value when you no longer fit the future they imagined. My former mother-in-law, Diane, had never believed I was good enough for her son. I wasn't from a wealthy family. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't interested in competing with anyone. According to her, that made me a disappointment. 3 months after our divorce, my ex-husband married my former best friend, Rachel. A few months later, they welcomed a baby boy. From the outside, they looked like the perfect family Diane had always wanted. Meanwhile, I quietly rebuilt my life. I accepted a leadership position at a respected hospital and focused on moving forward instead of looking back. Then one ordinary Thursday afternoon, everything changed. I was walking through the hospital's executive wing when I heard a familiar voice. "Well, look who it is." I turned around. Diane stood there holding a gift bag. The smug smile on her face hadn't changed at all. She looked me up and down before speaking loudly. "Leaving you was the best decision my son ever made. Now he has a beautiful wife, a baby boy, and the life he deserves." Several people nearby glanced toward us. I simply smiled. Then I asked one question. "Is that what you believe?" At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. A message appeared. "He's here. 5 minutes early." I looked at the message for a moment before slipping my phone back into my pocket. 5 minutes. That was all. Across from me, Diane crossed her arms. "You always had that little smile," she said. "Like you knew something everyone else didn't." I laughed softly. "No. I just learned that arguing rarely changes people's minds." Her expression tightened. The truth was, she had spent years influencing my marriage long before the divorce happened. Every disagreement became proof I wasn't good enough. Every mistake became evidence that her son deserved better. At first, my husband defended me. Then slowly things changed. Comments became arguments. Arguments became distance. Distance became silence. What hurt most wasn't Diane's behavior. It was discovering that my former best friend, Rachel, always seemed to be nearby whenever problems appeared. She listened to my frustrations. She offered advice. She acted supportive. Then, after the divorce, she became my ex-husband's wife. That told me everything I needed to know. I could have fought publicly. I could have exposed every detail. Instead, I walked away. Not because I was weak, because I was exhausted. For months after the divorce, I focused entirely on rebuilding my life. I worked longer hours, earned additional certifications, accepted responsibilities that most people avoided. Eventually, those efforts led to opportunities one never expected. One project became two. Two became five. Before long, I was helping coordinate one of the hospital's most important initiatives. None of my former in-laws knew any of that. I never felt the need to tell them. Meanwhile, Diane continued smiling confidently. "Rachel gave my son everything you couldn't," she said. I said nothing. Then my phone vibrated again. A second message appeared. "We're walking in now." The conference room doors opened. 3 people stepped inside. 2 hospital administrators entered first. Then a tall man in a navy suit followed behind them. The reaction around us was immediate. Several employees straightened in their seats. A few stood up. One of the department directors walked forward to greet him personally. Diane glanced around, suddenly confused. "Who is that?" she asked. Before I could answer, the man spotted me. His face lit up. "Emily, He crossed the room and extended his hand. Thank you for coming on such short notice. It's good to see you again, Mr. Reynolds, I said. Diane's eyes widened. She recognized the name. Thomas Reynolds was one of the most respected healthcare executives in the state. We shook hands. Then he turned toward the group gathered nearby. I hope everyone understands how fortunate we are to have Emily leading this initiative. The room filled with nods.
Several people smiled at me.
Diane stared as if she were seeing a completely different person. Mr. Reynolds continued. The success of this project wouldn't have happened without her leadership. That's why I'm pleased to officially recommend her for the regional director position. For a second, the room was silent. Then congratulations erupted from every direction. My phone immediately filled with messages. Diane looked speechless. A promotion? She asked quietly. I simply nodded. Mr. Reynolds smiled. Actually, that's only part of the announcement. He reached into his folder. The partnership agreement becomes public next week. Emily will be overseeing the entire expansion. More congratulations followed. Then he said something unexpected. I remember meeting your former husband at one event years ago. Diane froze instantly. And suddenly, the conversation became much more interesting. Diane's posture stiffened immediately. Mr. Reynolds didn't notice. He simply continued speaking. Very polite man, he said. I remember him mentioning that he hoped things would improve financially soon. Diane forced a smile. Well, everything worked out perfectly. The confidence in her voice sounded weaker now. Mr. Reynolds tilted his head. Did it? She blinked. What do you mean? He looked genuinely surprised. I assumed you knew. Several people from our network have worked with your son's company recently. The smile disappeared from Diane's face. I remained silent. Mr. Reynolds continued casually. There have been significant challenges over the past year. Budget reductions, staffing issues, and several delayed projects. Diane swallowed hard. That can't be right. I'm afraid it is. The room suddenly felt very quiet. For the first time since seeing me, Diane looked uncertain. She had spent the last 10 minutes describing a perfect life, a perfect marriage, a perfect family, a perfect future. Now cracks were beginning to appear. I was told they're doing great, she said. Mr. Reynolds shrugged. Appearances can be misleading. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Diane looked away. For years, she had judged people based on appearances, status, titles, money, the image of success. Now that image was slipping through her fingers. Meanwhile, employees continued stopping by to congratulate me. Some discussed the upcoming expansion project. Others thanked me for helping mentor them. The respect in their voices was genuine. It wasn't something that could be purchased or inherited. It had been earned. Diane watched every interaction. Finally, she lowered her eyes. For the first time since our divorce, she looked uncomfortable. Then she asked a question I never expected to hear. Emily, how did you manage to rebuild your life after everything happened? I looked at Diane for several seconds before answering. The old version of me would have tried to prove something. The old version of me would have wanted her approval. Not anymore. Honestly, I said. I stopped spending energy trying to convince people of my value. She stared at me. I continued. When the divorce happened, I thought my life was over. I thought losing a marriage meant I had failed. I shook my head. But eventually I realized something important. The room had grown quiet. Even Mr. Reynolds seemed interested. I wasn't devastated because I lost the relationship. I was devastated because I lost the future I imagined. Diane lowered her eyes. For a long time, I kept asking why everything happened. Then I stopped asking why and started asking what comes next. I smiled. That changed everything. She swallowed hard. You don't hate us? The question surprised me.
No.
She looked confused. Not even after everything? I shook my head again. Hate keeps you connected to the people who hurt you.
I didn't want that.
I wanted peace. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Diane whispered, I misjudged you. Maybe she had. Maybe she always would have. But it no longer mattered. I picked up my folder and prepared to leave. As I walked toward the door, Diane stood silently behind me. The woman who once measured worth by appearances now had nothing left to say. Outside the conference room, sunlight poured through the hospital windows. I paused for a moment and smiled. Sometimes people think the best revenge is watching others fail. They're wrong. The greatest victory is building a life so fulfilling that you no longer need anyone's approval to enjoy it. And finally, I had done exactly that.